Hi guys, we're going to be continuing our study on the Jewish feasts, and we are going to be looking at the Apocrypha that I have, the Book of Jubilees, and but I just want to quickly review in Exodus the feasts, and they can be found in multiple places: Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Basically, they review, re-review, and re-review these feasts. But we're going to look to the Book of Jubilees because I think there's some interesting things for us to find. But here, I just wanted to read Exodus, and we're going to start at, let's start at Exodus. Let's start at Exodus 18. So it says, if you can see this, let me just enlarge this a little bit. So we're going to start here at Exodus 18. Let me make it a little bit bigger. There we go. All right. So it says, observe the festival of unleavened bread. You are to eat unleavened bread for 7 days at the appointed time in the month of Abib. That's the first month, as I commanded you, for you came out of Egypt in the month of Abib. So remember, Passover is on the 14th, and it is to memorialize when they were in Egypt and Moses was raining down plagues on Egypt, on the people of Egypt and the king or the Pharaoh. One of the plagues is, I think it was the last one, is when the firstborn was killed, right? And they were to slaughter a lamb, an unblemished lamb. I think the lamb had to be 1 year, at least 1 year old, and or no more than 1 year old. And they were to take the blood and they were to smear the blood on the doorposts of the dwellings where they were dwelling in Egypt, right? And everywhere that blood was, the death angel that was bringing this plague through Egypt would pass over any dwelling that had the blood of this lamb smeared over the doorposts, right? That is where we get the Passover. And then that is when Pharaoh decided, to release them, because his firstborn child was a part of the people, and this included animals too, that were firstborn that died, that weren't a part of the children of Israel. So that means everyone in Egypt who wasn't with Israel, which probably was no one, they didn't have this blood smeared across their doorposts. So that meant everyone but Israel had a firstborn something die in their household. That could have been a pet, it could have been cattle, it could have been chickens, and it definitely included their humans, like their families, right? So Pharaoh's firstborn son was a part of that, and he died, and it upset Pharaoh so much he eventually let them go, but they had to leave in haste. So they gathered up some treasures. Basically, they kind of pillaged the people of Egypt so that they wouldn't leave empty-handed, and they had to quickly make bread so fast for the journey that they weren't able to leaven the bread. So they took with them bread that was unleavened, right? And so this is where we get the unleavened bread festival, because it's right after Passover. And the festival of unleavened bread memorializes the haste at which they had to leave Egypt so fast that they weren't able to leaven their bread. When you use yeast in bread, it actually needs time to rest and to fluff up, and it usually like doubles in size, and you got to pound it down some more and knead it a little bit, and then you have to give it some more time to rise, right, before you bake it. They didn't have that much time. They had to leave quickly, because what happened after that? Pharaoh changed his mind and decided to go after Israel and hunt them down and chase after them as they were fleeing Egypt, right? And you know the rest of the story. And so that is where we get those two festivals, okay? So now, then it says here, and that was in the first month. Abib is the first month that took place. Then the firstborn male from every womb belongs to me, including all your male livestock, the firstborn of cattle or sheep. You may redeem the firstborn of a donkey with a sheep, but if you do not redeem it, break its neck. Then it says, you must redeem all the firstborn of your sons. No one is to appear before me empty-handed. You are to labor 6 days, but you must rest on the seventh day. You must even rest during plowing and harvesting times. Observe the festival of weeks, right? The festival of weeks with the first fruits of the wheat harvest, and the festival of ingathering. This is Pentecost, right? That would be wheat. And the festival of ingathering at the turn of the agricultural year. 3 times all your males are to appear before the Lord, the God of Israel, for I will drive out nations before you and enlarge your territory. No one will covet your land when you go up 3 times a year to appear before the Lord. All right. And then it says down here, do not present the blood for my sacrifice with anything leavened. The sacrifice of the Passover festival must not remain until morning. Okay, that's him going over Passover. And it says, bring the best first fruits of your land to the house of the Lord your God. All right. Now, it did talk about, and this is when Moses was up on the mountain. Moses was with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. He did not eat food or drink water. He wrote the 10 Commandments, the words of the covenant, on the tablets. Now, this is interesting because at this time that Moses is on the mountain for 40 days, we really don't know what he's doing up there. Scripture is pretty silent on it. We know that he's up there 40 days and the people of Israel are down at the foot of the mountain, some ways away from it, and they are actively rebelling against God already. This is where they construct the golden calf by melting down all of their jewelry, and Aaron assists them in doing this begrudgingly, I assume, because he didn't get zapped by God. So I assume in order to make them happy and not get stoned to death because he was on his own, he probably just did as they wished, knowing that they would probably get in trouble. Anyhow, you know how the rest of the story goes, but the Book of Jubilees picks up right there where it talks about Moses being away on the mountain for 40 days. Because in our Bibles, it basically says, we know he's up there 40 days, he's chatting with God, but we don't really know what's being said. We know he comes back with the 10 Commandments and he finds Israel in rebellion. God tells him, you might want to get down there quickly because I'm about to zap these people. They've already turned away from me, right? He hasn't even given them the covenant yet, and they've already lost their minds. So, but while he's up in the mountain, Jubilees is basically a recounting of the details between God and Moses, right? So during this time, Moses is on the mountain with God and the angels of the Lord. And these angels or maybe they're the angels of the presence, but these angels are recounting to Moses what they call the dividing of the times. Basically, from Adam up until Moses' day, what happened that was important with God and the patriarchs that led up to Moses being where he was on the mountain, right? All the promises that were made from Adam forward up until the time of Moses' day. He is recounting this to Moses. Now, remember, when Israel left Egypt, right, they left there with the patriarch Jacob, who was renamed Israel. They left there with Joseph and all the original 12 sons, right? But then they all died off in Egypt. Jacob died, shortly after they were in Egypt, and then Joseph died, and then all the original sons died. And then the land got conquered. Egypt got conquered by foreigners. I think people from Canaan came in and conquered Egypt and ended up putting Israel into forced labor. And so because of this, and they were enslaved, a lot of the customs and the festivals and the things that Jacob would have been doing got forgotten over those 400 years, And so that they were in Egypt, these things had gotten forgotten. they were forgotten. And so Moses and God is reviewing this stuff. And so what we learn in Jubilees is that before Moses' day, before Israel actually entered into covenant with God as a nation, these festivals were already established in the heavens. And they were celebrated by the patriarchs before Jacob. They were celebrated by Isaac and Abraham. They were celebrated by Noah, Enoch, Adam, all the patriarchs, all the way back to Adam. And even in creation, when creation was first made, it began in heaven. So like some of the festivals were established at the very beginning, but the most important one that they seem to highlight even more than Passover, which is crazy, is the Festival of Weeks. And I think this is so interesting. And we're going to review this in the Book of Jubilees, and I'm just going to give you my thoughts. Now, I'm going to share some things that, yes, they're going to challenge your thinking. They're going to challenge some of the teachings that are already out there because, some of these things can be pretty gray as far as the timing. And so I'm going to give you my perspective. And this isn't me saying that I'm right. I'm not dogmatic about these things. I am still learning as well. So I'm not saying take what I say with a grain of salt, but just know that I'm still learning and I'm not dogmatic about this because I just don't think these particular things are a matter of heaven or hell. Okay. They're definitely not a matter of salvation. So keep an open mind. As I keep an open mind. And as we learn more, we do better. Right? And so, but this is where I am. All right. So we are going to start in Jubilees. Let's start in chapter 6. Okay. So I'm not going to go, this is still focused on the festival. So I'm not going to go into all the other things talking about Adam and stuff like that. I'm going to just skip to the part where some of these festivals are established. The only festival that I know to not be newly established by a human is the Feast of Weeks, because it was celebrated first in heaven, is what Jubilees teaches us. Okay. So now, chapter 6, and we are going to go to okay. I'm missing something back there. Sorry guys, I was looking at something else, making sure I didn't miss something important. Okay. So let's go here, chapter 6. And we're just, for the sake of this study, we're just going to read it all. You know, I like to do the context. All right. So okay, just making sure I didn't have a verse written down. So it says, let's put it in the middle here. So it says, and on the new moon of the third day, on the new moon of the third month, he went out from the ark and built an altar on that mountain. Okay, so now Noah is getting out of the ark. The waters have receded and he's getting out of the ark. Okay, so this is the new moon, which would be the first day of the third month. The new moon is what marks a new month. So it is the first day of the next month. So this is the first day, which means new moon of month 3. He went out from the ark and built an altar on that mountain, and he made atonement for the earth and took a kid and made atonement by its blood for all the guilt of the earth, for everything that had been on it and had been everything on it that had been destroyed, save those that were in the ark with Noah, right? And he placed the fat thereof on the altar, and he took an ox and a goat and a sheep and the kids and salt and a turtle dove and the young of a dove, and placed a burnt sacrifice on the altar, and poured thereon an offering mingled with oil and sprinkled wine, and strewed frankincense over everything, and caused a goodly savor to arise, acceptable before the Lord. And the Lord smelt the goodly savor, and he made a covenant with him. Okay, so this is important. Okay, so God makes a covenant with Noah, after he gets off the ark, you should already know what this covenant is, in the third month. That's going to be kind of like a reoccurring theme here. Okay. So it says, and he made a covenant with him that there should not be any more of flood to destroy the earth, that all the days of the earth, seed time and harvest, should never cease. Cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night should not change. Sorry, guys. Should not change their order nor cease forever. And you increase you and multiply upon the earth, and become many upon it, and a blessing upon it. The fear of you and the dread of you shall I inspire in everything that is on earth and in the sea. And behold, I have given unto you all beasts and all winged things and everything that moves on the earth, and the fish in the waters, and all the things for food, for the green herbs. I have given you all things to eat, but flesh with the life thereof, with the blood. Remember, the life is in the blood. Okay? You shall not eat, for the life of the flesh is in the blood, lest your blood of your lives be required. So basically, it's sin to eat or drink blood. This is something that the pagans, the Gentiles, the heathen at this time, who were considered wicked during this time, this is what they did. Okay? Now, at this point, there are no Gentiles at this point. They are all, first of all, the idea of Gentile doesn't exist, but he calls them the nations. Okay? He says this is what the nations do, or the heathen. This is what they do. Okay. These are people who are not considered righteous. These are what the wicked, the unrighteous do. We get to the concept of Gentile when Israel is chosen as a nation, because Israel is considered God's people. And then anything that's not Israel, everything outside of Israel, is considered the nations or the heathen or the Gentiles. These are all basically synonyms to mean the same thing. Okay. So, and at the hand of every man, at the hand of every beast shall I require the blood of a man. Whoso sheds man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God, man is made. And you increase ye and multiply on the earth. And Noah and his sons swore that they would not eat any blood that was in any flesh. And he made a covenant before the Lord God forever throughout all the generations of the earth in this month. Okay, so right here, there's a covenant being made in month 3. Okay, month 3 on the new moon, the first day. Okay, now the day is I don't think the day really matters. I think what's most important is the month. Okay, because the day tends to fluctuate a little bit. On this account, he spoke to you that you should make a covenant with the children of Israel in this month, upon the mountain with an oath, and that you should sprinkle blood upon them because of all the words of the covenant which the Lord made with them forever. So remember, when Moses comes down the mountain, and remember, he rebukes them for the golden calf. He breaks the tablets, and he goes back up the mountain again. He comes back, and then this time they're doing right. But he has them basically enter into covenant with a verbal yes. So like he's saying, will you do these things? Will you be God's people? Da 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 da. And they say, yes, we will do this. And he tells them, if you obey his commands and you honor your part in the covenant, these blessings will befall you. But if you violate the covenant, default on the covenant, break your vow, like almost like your marriage vows. Remember, this covenant is likened to a marriage, right? God is their king or husband in a sense. In Israel, the nation, the people, is likened to being his wife or his people. It's like a kingdom. He's the king, and they are his subjects. Okay, he was their king before they had a first human king. That is the way that God had ordained it in the beginning. Okay, so they give a verbal yes, and they willingly and voluntarily go into covenant with the Lord. Okay, so this is what this is a reference to, and what this angel is reviewing with Moses is that this is what happened with Noah. And Noah, when he got off the ark, he established this particular covenant, or this particular festival in this feast. And it commemorates when he got off the ark safely in the third month, and he offered these sacrifices to God, you know, basically to thank God and bless God for, bringing him safely off the ark in the third month, right? So then it got established in the heavenly tablets that this is what they were to do every year in this month. And it specifically says in this month, right? So, and on the previous page, it's the same thing, in this month. So now they're forward, many years forward from the time of Noah. And in the same exact month that Israel is entering into their covenant with God, which is basically a continuation from the patriarchs, right? And is being reestablished or renewed with Israel. Israel, they are descendants of Noah. Okay. Actually, the whole earth is descendants of Noah. But, it gets the line closes in as we get closer to the time of Jacob. But the point I'm making is that these covenants are being made in month 3. That is what I want you to take away from this. Okay. So this month upon the mountain with an oath, and that you should sprinkle blood upon them. Remember, Moses sprinkled blood on them, upon them, because of all the words of the covenant which the Lord made with them forever. And it says this covenant is permanent. These covenants are permanent. And this testimony is written concerning you, that you should observe it continually, so that you should not eat on any day any blood of beasts or birds, cattle, during all these days of the earth. And the man who eats, the blood of beasts or of cattle or of the birds during all the days of the earth, he and his seed shall be rooted out of the land. He and his seed shall be rooted out of the land. And do you command the children of Israel to eat no blood, so that their names and their seed may be before the Lord our God continually. And for this law, there is no limit of days. So that means, guys, we're not Israelites. So we're not bound, by these things. And even Israelites who are in the body of Christ, who have given their life over to Christ, they're no longer under the law. So you could argue whether or not they are still bound by this, but Gentiles most certainly, are not bound by this. But I still think that, no, that's not true. Actually, that's not true. I want to say, let me review that, because I know that I think this still stands, because I want to say they were supposed. Let me not say that. I'm thinking of something else that just came to my mind. Let me not say that, because we still might be bound by this now that I'm thinking about it, because I know that we were supposed to not commit fornication and do some other things. And I'm not going to look that up in my Bible right now because I don't want to get off topic. But I want to say that this particular piece we still might be bound by. I have to look that one up. But the point I'm making is that this is a permanent thing for Israel. Okay, no blood. As it pertains to Gentiles, I'll get back with you on that one. I don't want to misspeak, so let me not just go there. Okay, so then it says every day and at the time of morning and evening, they shall seek forgiveness on your behalf perpetually before the Lord, and they may keep it and not be rooted out. And he gave Noah and his sons a sign. This is the rainbow, that there should not again be a flood on the earth. He set his bow in the cloud for a sign of the eternal covenant, that there should not be a flood on the earth to destroy it all the days of the earth. Okay, for this reason it is ordained and written on the heavenly tablets, on the heavenly tables, that they should celebrate the Feast of Weeks in this month. Let me repeat that. For this reason it is ordained and written on the heavenly tables, that they should celebrate the Feast of Weeks in this month, once a year, to renew the covenant every year. All right. Now, this is only a piece of where I'm going. I've got something more to say about this, okay? And this whole festival was celebrated in heaven from the day of creation until the days of Noah. 26 jubilees and 5 weeks of years. And Noah and his sons observed it for 7 jubilees and 1 week of years, until the day of Noah's death. And from the day of Noah's death, his sons did away with it. His sons did away with it for 7 jubilees and 1 week of years. Oh, I'm sorry, I repeated that. Um, I lost my place. Okay. Noah and his sons observed for 7 days, and then it says on his death, his sons did away with it. Sorry, guys. And then it says of Abraham until the days of Abraham, and they ate blood. Okay. But Abraham observed it, and Isaac and Jacob. So just like I said beforehand, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob all observed this, and his children observed it up to your days. And in your days, the children of Israel forgot it until you celebrated it anew on this mountain. Okay. So Jacob would have been the last patriarch. Him and his sons would have been the last ones to observe it when they were in Egypt. And then upon his death, while they were in Egypt, it got forgotten as the patriarchs died. That would have been Jacob and his 12 sons, okay? And then, they got into slavery and they forgot it. All right, so when Moses is on the mountain, it is month 3. They are in month 3 when he's given Jubilees. And Moses, so it went from Jacob and them being in Egypt, and it skips all those hundreds of years that they were in slavery in Egypt, and then it gets restarted again in Moses' day when he's on the mountain, and he's up on the mountain for 40 days with God. Okay. All right. So he says, one day in the year, in this month, they shall celebrate the festival. Okay. And he says, and do you command the children of Israel to observe this festival in all the generations for a commandment unto them? One day in the year, in this month, they shall celebrate the festival, for it is the Feast of Weeks and the Feast of First Fruits. What? Listen, because I'm going to make a really good point about this later. It is the Feast of Weeks and the Feast of First Fruits. Okay, wait, what? Listen, this feast is twofold and of a double nature, according to what is written and engraved concerning it. Celebrate it. And when it says written and engraved, it's talking about in the heavenly tables, okay? So this is established in the heavens. And I get this idea that the Feast of Weeks is really important, okay? For I have written in the book of the first law, in that which I have written for you, that you should celebrate it in its season. So this is written in the book of the first law, one day in the year. And I explain to you its sacrifices, that the children of Israel should remember and should celebrate it throughout their generations in this month, one day in every year. Okay, and on the new moon of the first month, and on the new moon of the 4th month, and on the new moon of the 7th month, and on the new moon of the 10th month are the days of remembrance, and the days of the seasons in the four divisions of the year. These are written and ordained as a testimony forever. And Noah ordained for himself as feast for the generations forever, so that they have become thereby a memorial unto him. And on the new moon of the 1st month, he was bidden to make for himself an ark. And on the day the earth became dry, and he opened the ark and saw the earth. And on the new moon of the 4th month, did I get that right? On the new moon of the 1st month, yes. And then on the new moon of the 4th month, the mouths of the depths of the abysses beneath were closed. And on the new moon of the 7th month, all the mouths of the abysses of the earth were opened, and the waters began to descend into them. And on the new moon of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains were seen, and Noah was glad. And on this account, he ordained them for himself as feasts for memorial forever. And thus are they ordained. And they placed them on the heavenly tables. Each had 13 weeks from one to the other. So from month 1 to month 4 to month 7 to month 10, there are 13 weeks in each grouping, between each, right? for a total of 52 weeks in the year. So it says, from one another pass their memorial from the first to the second, and from the second to the third, and from the third to the fourth. And all the days of the commandment will be 52 weeks of days, and these will make the entire year complete. Thus it is engraved and ordained on the heavenly tables, and there is no neglecting this commandment for a single year, or from year to year. And command you, the children of Israel, that they observe the years according to this reckoning, 364 days. And these will constitute a complete year, and they will not disturb its time from its days and from its feasts. For everything will fall out in them according to their testimony, and they will not leave out any day nor disturb any festival or any feast. But if they do neglect and do not observe them according to his commandment, then they will disturb all their seasons, and the years will be dislodged from this order, and they will disturb the seasons, and the years will be dislodged, and they will neglect their ordinances. Some of these inserts are just not that great. They will neglect their ordinances, and all the children of Israel will forget and will not find the paths of the years, and will forget the new moons and seasons and Sabbaths, and they will go wrong as to all the order of the years. For I know, and from now on shall I declare it unto you, and it is not of my own devising, for the book written before me, or it's basically, so he says, for the book lies written before me, and on the heavenly table the division of these days is ordained, lest they forget the feast of the covenant and walk according to the feast of the Gentiles, after their error and after their ignorance. For there will be those who will assuredly make observations of the moon. Now it disturbs the seasons and comes in from year to year 10 days too soon. So basically what they're saying is that they're going to start to count the days based on the moon, and the moon, the way that it's being tracked, it messes up the count, is what it's saying. And if you go to the book of Enoch, it explains how that happens, right? And then it says, for this reason, the years will come upon them when they will disturb the order and make an abominable day the day of testimony, and an unclean day a feast day. So he is saying, he's basically prophesying, like, we expect Israel to screw this up. Matter of fact, we know that they're going to screw this up, right? All right. He says, and they will confound all the days, the holy with the unclean, and the unclean day with the holy, for they will go wrong as to the months and Sabbaths and feasts and jubilees. For this reason, I command and testify to you, that you may testify to them, for after your death, your children will disturb them, so that they will not make the year 364 days only. And for this reason, they will go wrong as to new moons and seasons and Sabbaths and festivals, and they will eat all kinds of blood with all kinds of flesh. So basically he is saying, listen, this is the command. This is what they're supposed to do. But I kind of already know they're not gonna do right. They're gonna go wrong. They're gonna mess up the count. Just giving you a heads up, right? That they already know how Israel's gonna mess up. Okay, so this is important. Okay, God has given us the way to keep count. And even he tells Moses where he is on the particular day that all of this is being recounted to him. They give him at the very end of Jubilees where he is in the count, starting all the way back from the beginning of Adam. Now, remember, Moses wouldn't have known this because Moses was with Egypt. Remember, he was raised up with Egypt and with Pharaoh as a child. And so he is completely oblivious to some of these things. And this is all new to him. Okay. So it's being recounted to him for a reason, and this is so that the nation of Israel can continue to observe it as it was being observed by the patriarchs before them. All right, so next, let's go to chapter 15. Chapter 14. Sorry, guys. Okay, and we're going to pick up at let's pick up at verse 1. All right. So now I want to say we are at the time of, are we at the time of Abraham here? Let's just read. After these things, in the 4th year of this week, on the new moon of the 3rd month, the word of the Lord came to Abram. Yes, we are in the time of Abraham. In a dream, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am your defender, and your reward will be exceedingly great. And he said, Lord, Lord, what will you give me, seeing I go hence childless, and the son of Masech, the son of my handmaid, is the Damasek Eleazar. He will be my heir. And to me you have given no seed. And he said unto him, This man will not be your heir, but the one that will come out of your own bowels, he will be your heir. And he brought him out abroad and said unto him, Look toward heaven and number the stars, if you are able to number them. And he looked toward heaven and beheld the stars. And he said unto him, So shall your seed be. Basically, numerous. Abraham is considered to be the father of the multitude, which is interesting because in Revelation 7:9, that group is called a multitude. Okay, we are grafted into Abraham. All right, Abraham's seed is who Christians are, and he believed in the Lord, and it was counted to him for righteousness. He believed in the Lord, and it was counted to Abraham as righteousness. Belief means faith. Okay. This explains why the church is grafted in as Abraham's seed, because it's based on our faith, like his faith, that we are given righteousness through Jesus Christ, whose gospel we believe on. Okay. And he said unto him, I am the Lord that brought you out of Ur of the Chaldees, which is in Iraq, to give you the land, kind of in the land of Iraq, and maybe it's in three areas, kind of. To give you the land of the Canaanites to possess it forever, and I shall be God unto you and to your seed after you. And he said, Lord, Lord, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said unto him, Take me an heifer of 3 years, and a goat of 3 years, and a sheep of 3 years, and a turtle dove, and a pigeon. And he took all these in the middle of the month, and he dwelt at the oak of Mamre, which is near Hebron, and he built there an altar and sacrificed all these. And he poured their blood upon the altar and divided them in the middle, basically in the midst, and laid them over against each other. But the birds he did not divide. And birds came down upon the pieces, and Abraham drove them away. Abram drove them away and did not suffer the birds to touch them. And it came to pass when the sun had set, that an ecstasy fell on Abraham. Basically, he came into like a deep sleep, almost like being hypnotized, or like I'm not going to say a spell was put on him, but like God caused him to go into a deep sleep, And what did it say? And Abram, ecstasy fell upon Abram, and behold, a horror of great darkness fell upon him. And it was said unto Abraham, Know for sure that your seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs. Okay. And they will bring them into bondage. Okay. This is when they were in Egypt. He's talking about Israel in this moment, and afflict them 400 years. This is Israel. And the nation also to whom they will be in bondage shall I judge. This is Egypt. And after that, they will come out from there with much substance. Remember, I told you how they pillaged Egypt. And you will go to your fathers in peace and be buried in a good old age. But in the 4th generation, they will return here. This is in Moses' day. For the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. And he awoke from his sleep, and he arose, and the sun had set, and there was a flame, and behold, a furnace was smoking. And a flame of fire passed between the pieces. And on that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abraham. So where are we? We are in month 3 yet again. And here it is, yet another covenant being made in month 3, which we just learned was the Feast of Weeks. And the Feast of First Fruits is what Jubilees teaches us, right? All right. This pattern continues. And on that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying, to your seed will I give this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates, the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Perizzites, and the Raphaim, and the Pacharites, and the Hivites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. And the day passed, and Abram offered the pieces and the birds. So this is basically the Canaanites, guys. And the days passed, and Abram offered the pieces and the birds, and their fruit offerings, and their drink offerings, and the fire devoured them. And on that day we made a covenant with Abram, according as we had covenanted with Noah in this month. And Abram renewed the festival and ordinance for himself forever. And Abram rejoiced and made all things known to Sarai, his wife. And he believed that he would have seed, but she did not bear. And Sarai advised her husband Abram and said unto him, go unto Hagar, my Egyptian maid. It may be that I shall build up seed unto you by her. And Abram hearkened unto the voice of Sarai his wife, and said unto her, do so. And Sarai took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, and gave her to Abram, her husband, to be his wife. And he went into her, and she conceived and bore him a son, and he called his name Ishmael, in the 5th year of this week. And this was the 86th year in the life of Moses. So, and in the 5th, this is chapter 15, but I just want to say a couple things. So we've got Noah and Abraham, okay? These are the patriarchs that we know celebrated the Feast of Weeks. It's called the Feast of Weeks and the Feast of First Fruits. It is dual in nature, is what it says, okay? And it says it is twofold. We're going to discuss that later, okay?